Okay, this happened in 2016 when I was 17 years old. First year in college, in film school. I'm now 22 and female. My name's Julia. I lived alone in my first ever apartment. It was really small, but I was really proud of my independence. I never felt unsafe in this apartment for several reasons. There were multiple gates in the residence that needed to be opened through with a code only, and the people who lived there knew. My door had 3 different locks, and it was right next to university, so most people who lived in the neighborhood were college students. Nothing bad had ever happened in the neighborhood before. I've always had been very careful with locking the door when I left my house. I'd always check twice. I have a slight OCD, so this one time I leave to go to class, and I locked my door. But for some reason, I couldn't get the key out of the lock. It was completely stuck. So I went to get the caretaker of the building to help me get it, but he wasn't there, and I was getting late for class. So I went to class with the key still in the lock. I took off the keychain first so it wouldn't be too noticeable. When I got home, the caretaker was back, so he came with me to help me, but we couldn't get it out of there. For 15 minutes until somehow he did. He told me the lock was damaged, but that I didn't necessarily need to change it, if only if I locked it once instead of twice. I just said, okay, and that was the end of it. I really wasn't worried because of how safe I felt in the building. Flash forward to 2 months later. I was taking out the trash, one night around 11 p.m. While on the phone with my sister, I remember telling her that I was out taking the trash. Then that I would take a shower afterwards before heading to a party. As I previously said, I always lock the door, even just to take the trash out. Because of my lock being damaged, I only locked it once. When I got back to my apartment, I found the door unlocked, which immediately alarmed me. So I went into the apartment and locked the door immediately, with 3 different types of locks. When you walk into my apartment, which is just 215 square feet, you have the main room in front of you, and the bathroom door immediately to your left. I had left the bathroom door slightly opened, enough so that I could see that there was a man in my shower, turning his back to me. Naturally, when I saw this, I tried to open the door and leave as fast as I possibly could. Except my main lock was damaged from the 2 months earlier, and I couldn't open it no matter how hard I tried. In this moment, all I could think of was the fact that he had to leave as fast as possible. I jumped out the window without really thinking. I figured it was the only solution, except I lived on the 2nd floor, so I completely smashed my ankles in the landing. I started running in whichever way I could. When I got a little bit further from the building, I looked back. The man was there, at my window, watching me run away. I thought of 2 possible outcomes. Either the man was going to jump and chase me, except I wouldn't get far with my twisted ankles, or he'd get scared of the height and be locked in my apartment. Thankfully, he picked option 2. I went to hide in a bush a little further and called the police, who arrived in just 10 minutes because I lived close to the station. They pushed my door open and the man was just sitting there on my couch, holding a kitchen knife, waiting for me to come back. Like you didn't think I would call the police. They arrested the guy and later told me he'd already been arrested for sexual assault. The R word, attempted kidnapping, and attempted murder. They also told me how everything had happened. Like I said, it was a very friendly neighborhood with mostly college students, so he got inside the building by other people holding the door for him. He then heard me telling my sister I was going to take a shower, which is why he was waiting for me in the bathroom. He crocheted my lock while I was taking out the trash. He apparently noticed me on school campus and followed me to my house several times before, succeeding to actually come in. He stayed inside waiting for me because I had recently changed my phone, and the previous one was still on the table, so he thought I didn't have my phone with me to call the police. I don't live there anymore, but after that, to get into the building, we all needed identification proving we lived there. Building IDs were created, and we had to scan them every time. It was the only way to go inside the building. Nothing bad happened in the neighborhood after that. It's back to being very peaceful and friendly. I've known about this subreddit for a while now, but I've never gotten around to telling my own story, which of course I never thought I'd have. Since it's long, I won't bother with a long intro. All you need to know is this happened in my senior year of college, and I live off campus. I had 2 roommates in my apartment, townhouse thing, named Natalie and Katie. Anyways, Katie was out of the night doing some homework in one of the school buildings, and I was awoken at 3 a.m. when I heard some knocking at the door downstairs. I thought it was weird, considering the hour, but I figured someone had the wrong place and would realize and leave. The knocking didn't stop, though. I lied in bed for a good several minutes thinking, yeah, they'll go away now. They'll go away. They'll get bored. As one might expect, though, I started to get confused, and then kind of freaked out by this person's persistence. The knocking turned into banging, and I could hear the ignorance go away. Honestly, I probably should have called the police instantly, but it was in the middle of the night, and I was just confused, so I headed to the top of the stairs to see Natalie standing near the door, staring at it. Her room was at the bottom floor, so she just walked up to it. We exchanged a baffled look because of what the heck. It was 3 a.m. and this was weird. Natalie called out and asked who they are and what they wanted. "We're friends of Katie," said the voice on the other end, who sounded male and about our age. "We know her boyfriend, and we heard she was feeling down, so we came here to surprise her." That was already a weird story because, again, 3 in the morning. But thankfully, Katie wasn't even home, so we both informed them of this. "Katie's not here. She's off doing something else." "Good." "They're going to leave, right?" "They came here to see Katie, and she's not here. They'll leave us alone and we can go back to sleep." "Just open the door." I know. I know if I had called the police before, I definitely should have done it now. It was weird, though. That night I realized why people do stupid stuff in horror films. Not only had I been woken up out of nowhere, but it feels so real to be in a situation like this. Like there's no way you could actually be in danger. That only thing would happen in horror movies, and true crime documentaries, in the questionable creepy stories online. It would never happen to me. I'm just a random, ordinary, boring person going about my business. I don't need to call the police. I'm sure this will get cleared up and everything will be fine. So yeah, Natalie and I did this stupid thing and tried to argue with them. We told them that again, Katie wasn't there. There was no need for them to stay. Eventually, Natalie asked them for their names. Throughout the encounter, we made out 2 distinct voices, but only one gave us a name. And I texted Katie without telling them, asking if she was friends with someone with that name. After a couple minutes, during which we were still arguing with this stranger, Katie replied, "I am, but I don't think she knows where I live." That wasn't good, but even worse, she? The person at the door had a male voice, so that was a real name, but not the real person. Whoever this was knew stuff about Katie, like who she hung out with. I told Katie to stay where she was and not to come back until we told her everything was okay. Finally, we told the guys that if they didn't leave, we're going to call the police. No. Don't call the police. Don't call the police. Okay. If we wanted to do something bad, we already would have done it, right? Yeah, that last bit wasn't helping their case. Just open the door, okay? The attempts at reasoning with them basically devolved into them telling us to just open the door. Just open the door over and over again. Until we finally actually did call the police. We hid in Natalie's room and dialed 911 and explained what was going on. Thankfully, there was a police station close by, so it wouldn't take them long to arrive. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of heading back into the living room, telling them through the door that we called the cops. But contrary to what you might think, they actually didn't seem to scare them at all. They seemed only mildly upset and kept arguing. To this day, I can only assume that they didn't believe us or something. Then we heard a neighbor's home door swinging open, in a very pissed off man's voice. "If you don't leave right now, I'm fucking calling the police." For whatever reason, that's what caused them to freak out and they drove off. The police arrived and we told them the whole story. Natalie revealed that a couple times she had just barely peeked through the blinds of the window close to the front door, and she noted that there were only 2 guys, but only one of them was ever at the door at any given moment. They would switch, one at the door and the other sitting in the driver's seat of the car parked out front, presumably for getaway purposes. So yeah, that's reassuring. They also hadn't looked drunk, according to Natalie, and they definitely hadn't sounded like they were drunk. There wasn't much the police could do besides sweep the area a bit, but they told us if the stranger showed up again, to immediately call instead of engaging with them. One of the officers did give us the self-defense tactics, and told us what kind of household items/chemicals would work best for self-defense. After making sure everything was okay and reassuring us, they left. And we eventually did call Katie. Told her that the weirdos were gone. She arrived and was understandably a bit shaken up herself. We sat down and asked her who might have known where she had lived. She did know people who had come to the apartment, so some people, certainly. But Natalie hadn't recognized the guys outside as previous visitors. Worse, it turned out that not only did they know Katie's friend's name, but they claimed to know her boyfriend, even though he didn't even live in the state where they were going to school. She swore up and down she didn't know anyone who wanted to hurt her. By this point it was around 5 a.m., so I didn't even bother going to sleep. Since I was going to a workshop that morning, I told a lot of my classmates the story, and it freaked them out too. And the entire day, Natalie and I jumped every unexpected noise, every shadow, every random moment. That night it was hard to sleep, and I expected to hear knocking at the door at any second. Thankfully, they didn't come back, ever. But that almost makes things more unsettling. In a way, I'll never even know what they wanted that night. Did they think we were hiding Katie? Was she seeing less than savory people in secret? Did they want to hurt her? If they did, why did they never give up and go looking for her somewhere else? Was all this just an excuse to get into the apartment of a young woman? Did they want to kidnap us, hurt us, or rob us? Who knows? I try not to let it bother me, but I wish I knew if my life was in danger or not that night. I got a feeling I might have been. After all, they weren't wearing face covers, so if they wanted to commit a violent crime, they might want to get rid of the witnesses. But despite how much I wish I knew, yeah, random strange men who insisted we let them inside for unknown reasons. Let's not meet again.
At the time I was 14. This was 4 years ago and still gives me the chills. My house is in a very safe area. My town was ranked top 50th places in the United States, so scary things don't happen often. The road I lived on ran parallel to the interstate, and at one end of the street ended into a highway. The highway is about 4/10 of a mile from my house, with several gas stations and a Dollar General where my road met the highway. Since the area was safe, my parents didn't mind if I walked to the gas station or the Dollar General to grab a snack from time to time. One day I wanted Dr. Pepper, so I walked to the gas station to get me one. All was fine till I started heading back. I got close to halfway up the road, and this red truck drove by me. As he drove by me, I noticed the man that was driving was looking at me. I didn't think much about it until he turned around and drove by me again, but slower, all the while staring at me. I saw him turn around yet again and started heading for me. When he drove up to me, he almost came to the complete stop and started opening his door. As a stupid 14-year-old, I didn't know what to do. Before he could step out of the car, just by luck, a car pulled out behind him, which forced him to leave. I started walking again, but when I looked back, I saw him turning around again. I could see my house, but I didn't have time to make it. So I ran as fast as I could behind my neighbor's house, just barely out of sight. I hopped the fence into my backyard and ran into my house, scared for my life. I forgot to mention I was home alone. As soon as I entered my house, I ran to the window, looking at the street. What I saw was a red truck going so slow in front of my house. It almost looked like he was stopped. He was looking at me. After what felt like an eternity, he passed my house and turned around one last time to try to find me, but eventually drove off and I never saw him again. As a 14-year-old boy, I thought this only happened to little kids and girls, but I was wrong. What made me post this story is that I saw a red truck today that was identical to this man's truck. I work at a big chain dollar store, and I was out behind the store, taking out all the cardboard and garbage. We usually always have a person doing this with us, and today I was lucky enough to have someone with me. But that's not always the case. So we're there throwing garbage into the bin when a guy comes up to us from the tracks and implies that we're in high school. We both look at each other and then back to him, and I answer, no, we're adults. He looked surprised and talked about having a knack for seeing these kinds of things. We both assure him that we were adults, and he kind of shuffles off. Now I had my box cutter in my hand, ready to use it if this guy tried anything. But he left. My coworker was asking me why he was asking about us being in high school, and I just turned to her and said, we can't let any of the other girls do this alone anymore.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I want to give a huge thank you to Curious Raven for helping me out with today's video. I'm gonna put a link to her description. I'm gonna put a link to her channel in the description down below, and also in the comments. And yeah, also I'm gonna be on her channel. So if you guys want to see more of me and more of Curious Raven, definitely go to her channel and subscribe. Sorry, I need to drink some water. Definitely go to her channel and subscribe. So. I'm not really writing a script out, I'm just kind of talking. But anyways, this is cool. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yes, I don't know, maybe we'll have something here on the screen after I edit this, because I'm just looking at my computer. And yes, and that's it. Okay, alright, bye.